What is up? Happy Monday, ladies and gentlemen, all of you teachers and aspiring teachers, school leaders out there, and heck, anyone out there who is watching us here on a Monday evening. It is 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and welcome to our second episode of Deets with Dr. A. Dr. A, my name's Dr. A. There you are. I am the owner and founder of the Learning Liaisons. We specialize in teacher certification across the country, especially here in the great state of Florida. So I'm sure we have a lot of people here who are Florida teachers and administrators watching. Welcome. So we have got an amazing episode for you here today. Before I bring you on, a couple of quick things, and we'll talk about this at the end as well. Next week, this is next week's episode. So if you are a parent, a teacher, a school leader, or guardian, heck, whoever, you want to tune into next week's episode. We have got a national bullying expert, Dr. Claudio Cerullo. I have known him for probably about 5-7 years now. Amazing guy. He's going to be joining us next week to talk about cyberbullying. So you definitely want to check that one out. All right. So what we got going on here today, very cool stuff here. What we got going on today is we have got two rock star teachers joining us. I'm going to bring them on here in a second. We have got Sarah Hall, who is the 2020 Teacher of the Year for Seminole County Public Schools. And we also have Melissa Pappas, who is the Orange County Public Schools Teacher of the Year as well. So we've got two amazing rock star teachers here for you. So without further ado, let's bring on Sarah and Melissa.
Hey, how are you, Dr.
A? Welcome, ladies. So what I'm going to do is before we start having our conversations here and educating and answer people's questions, why don't you guys take a couple minutes and talk about yourself, share about your experiences, what you're doing now, and let's go.
Go for it, Melissa.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with everyone. I'm Melissa Pappas. I had the honor of being selected as the 2020 Orange County Public Schools Teacher of the Year this past year. I teach exceptional student education. I teach an intensive unit for students with autism and special needs. So ESE is something I'm very passionate about. That is my heart, and I love to educate and advocate for that community. And I'm also very passionate about social emotional learning. And our first and foremost, my focus is on our students. And then I also love to help support other teachers as well, so that we can get our kiddos where they need to go and make sure we're supporting them.
How long have you been teaching, Melissa?
This is my 5th year teaching. I've been in an education setting for a total of 13 years.
Oh,
so
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, you're up, Sarah. How about you?
All right. So thanks for having us, Dr. A. My name is Sarah Hall, and I am the 2020 Seminole County Public Schools District Teacher of the Year. I have my undergraduate degree in elementary education. I have my master's in reading education. I have been in the classroom for 17 years. This past year, I was in a first grade classroom here in Seminole County in a Title I school. And I have been an adjunct professor at UCF for the past 6 years. So I am fully immersed in mentoring and helping to support prospective educators. It's one of my passions. Like Melissa said, I'm also very passionate about advocating for social emotional learning and trauma-informed educating. And I love supporting other teachers. So I'm excited to be here and share with other teachers, and then also caregivers that are tuning in.
Awesome. Florida teacher here, Sarah, is actually the teacher in our Reading K through 12 workshop and also our GK reading specialist. And Melissa actually just came on board recently, and she is working on our new ESE materials too. So we're gonna have an ESE boot camp, and this for our Praxis peeps as well. So we're real excited stuff coming up here very soon here at the Learning Liaison. So let's get into the conversation. All right. So we're talking about how parents, guardians, teachers can help their elementary school level students during the summertime. So what we're gonna do here is very simple. This is very casual. There are no slides here. There's no presentation. We have got a series of discussion questions that we're going to throw on the screen. You guys who are watching, whether you're watching live or you're watching this recording on our YouTube channel, make sure you throw your comments in the box. Definitely like, subscribe, and comment. So if you're watching on YouTube right now, we're streaming on YouTube. We've got 2 Facebook groups, big ups to our FTC teachers in our FTC group. And they also have our Praxis teachers in our Praxis Facebook group, and then on our Learning Liaisons page. So make sure you definitely subscribe to the channel and the page. This way you can get updates and information as we go along. So as we go here tonight, we're going to ask you guys questions as well. Put your thoughts about what these two teachers are talking about, some of the discussion questions on the screen, please throw them in the chat box. And also pay attention, because during the session, we're going to give you guys the opportunity to join us here on the screen. Literally, we're going to fire off a link, click it, pop into the room. You can ask these ladies a question, any comments you want to share. Maybe you have a resource that you want to share based on the topics that we're going to talk about here tonight. So let's get it rolling here. So our first question for this evening is, we're going to talk about what the summer slide is, and not that fun slide in the water parks. And is it real? So I have an idea what the summer slide is. I know what it's about, but I'll let you guys discuss and share with the crowd, what exactly is that, and is it real? So let's talk about that.
I'll jump in if that's all right. The summer slide is very real, and the potential for it to be compounded this year because of the new digital learning platform that we were all immersed in at the end of the school year. There's really a potential for a lot of academic loss when students come back brick and mortar. It is on average estimated that most students without summer learning lose 2 months of reading knowledge and 2.6 months of math knowledge. So to break that down, that means that where your student was or your child was at the end of March is where they will most likely pick back up in August. And that's huge. It's recommended that students work 3 hours a week over the summer on academics. And Melissa, I know, is really passionate too about how students are, that it should be, not really learning new material over the summer. And I'll let her talk more on that. But, we need our kids learning. We need them to stay excited about learning, and we need them engaged. But Melissa, do you want to hit on, I know that you have talked before about students who are not learning new material over the summer, but just kind of.
Yeah, I think when we're looking at summer, we're looking at skill retention versus skill acquisition. So rather than trying to teach new skills over the summer, because we do want to allow our students that time to have that mental break. I mean, developmentally, they need that time to decompress and, just get back to interacting with the world around them, with as little pressure as possible. But the skill retention part of it is where we want to sort of prevent any additional regression when we go back into the school year. So it's focusing on maintenance of the skills that they may have already acquired during the school year, and how can we at least keep that going so when we get back to the school year, we at least have a starting point.
Yeah, and as a classroom teacher as well, you always know, even it doesn't matter the grade level too, elementary, middle, and high school. Right. I would notice kids coming back the first year of school, you can tell who was maintaining some kind of sense of reading or doing something engaging over the summer. Right. Versus the kids that just left school and was like, all right, well, I'll pick it back up when I come back in August, and then they have to play catch up that first month or so. So it's real important, however old you are, just to make sure that you're keeping abreast and reading and doing things over the summer. Yeah, relaxing too, but it's so important. Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Oh, Sarah, we got you. There you go, Sarah.
Thank you. It's really an opportunity too for students to be able to showcase with their caregivers what they have learned all year, to gain a little more independence with that, to really increase their confidence, and to just make that foundation so firm so that when they come back, they're ready to go. They're ready to shine. It's not something that they haven't been exposed to for 2 months, and they're really ready to build upon what they already know instead of wasting time potentially reviewing old material. One thing that, if you don't mind, Matt, throwing it up, I sent Matt a couple pictures to put up ahead of time, if that's all right. And Matt, if you don't mind putting up the picture that says why your child can't skip reading. Thank you. This is just an illustration that can really help our participants kind of follow along with this. This is a great illustration of why your child can't skip 20 minutes of reading tonight. And if you look at it, and it really breaks down the difference between potentially not practicing your reading at all and practicing your reading 20 minutes every night. And it really digs into that implication that it really compounds. So if you're reading 20 minutes every night, that is going to push you into where you need to be in the fall. And if you don't, you can look at the data there. It really compounds and becomes quite an issue.
Awesome. And you guys watching here, whether you're watching live or watching this recording on our YouTube channel, throw in the comments, what is there anything that you do for your children, or if you're a teacher, something you suggest for your kids, some good plan of attack, things to do over the summer to try to stop that slide, to make sure they're maintaining grade level expectations, working, reading on things, doing projects, whatever it is over the summer. Share what you're doing with your kids at home, or if you're a teacher, something you share with your kids before you let them go for the summer. So great. So let's throw up number 2. Oops, sorry, Matt. I'm doing it again. All right, so throw up number 2. So have you ever heard of the new term? Obviously, we're gonna see a lot of interesting names coming out as schools start. I like this one. The new term, the COVID slide. Right. So what does that mean? So what do you guys think about that?
I wish it was a cool dance move. It's very different from the cha-cha slide. The COVID slide is very different. It's really just the implication that it's going to be some compounded academic trauma potentially when students come back brick and mortar. So not only is there the potential for some really great learning loss that happened when they were at home and not with us for 2 months or however long it was where you teach, but really, it's the potential that it can really be compounded to be quite an issue when we come back. What we're digging into tonight is the implications of reading and writing academic trauma of being out of school for so long. But, this is another webinar for another night, but really there's going to be a lot of potential for social trauma and emotional trauma, all kinds of things. So I'm excited that we're talking about this aspect of it tonight.
And I love it. Big shout out to Kate. Kate had a great comment. She was talking about the Harry Potter audio books and Boom series. I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with the Boom series is. I'm sure you ladies know what that is. What's the Boom series?
I am not familiar with that one either.
You're supposed to.
I don't know.
I'm going to throw you out there to the fire. But Kate, I'm going to have to look that up, Boom series. And then we got the HP series. I got one of those. It's a printer though, but I'm sure that's not what they're talking about.
I'll echo what Sarah was saying. Obviously, this summer we're facing a very unique set of circumstances. So, typically we'd be looking at that summer slide that we just addressed, which is, our expected 2 months. But now, we're factoring in this extra time that we've been out of the classroom. And then on top of that, we are dealing with that trauma, and we are dealing with the potential regression across, developmental areas. We're not entirely sure what types of, situations like our students are in or our families, what kinds of things they're facing. So I think that's going to be an additional layer for us to look at when we do, return to the school year, and how we're going to address all of those needs, for our kids, because without addressing all of those needs, it's going to be difficult for us to, get back to where we want to be.
Yeah, and a lot of other variables come into play too. Do they have the things at home that they can do to keep up? Do they have books at home? Do they have the technology? Anything that they can do? Are they automatically put at a disadvantage because of the situation? So a lot of different things. It'll be interesting to see what happens when we come back to school.
So Kate said over in the comments that it was a typo. It autocorrected. She meant book series, not Boom series. So
I
was going to say, she needs to be our first person to pop in and play Boom series. I love it.
That's right. We're not taking points off for typos here. You're all right. That's good. All right. Awesome. So, hey, Matt, let's throw on the next question there. We got a bunch of good things to talk about here. So is it important for students to stay engaged in academics all summer? And how do you find balance of learning and taking a break? What's that? All right, what do you guys think about that? Melissa, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in with this one. So I think it's all in your perspective of what academics looks like, because it might not necessarily look like what we're doing in the classroom, but you can infuse academics in everything that you're doing over the summer, and our students are just going to think they're having fun. So it's really, all the approach. If you sit and you bake a recipe, you're measuring and, things like that. There's your math skills. If you're if they're reading the recipe, there's your readings. I go to cooking. So you're reading the recipe. So there's the cooking aspect of that. So I think there are really creative ways to infuse academics in the summer while still allowing students that mental break and that, that time to feel like they don't have a whole time, because they work hard during the year, that time to feel like they don't have all of those demands, and sort of more a low stakes setting, when they're at home and having fun. So.
Awesome. How about you, Sarah? What do you have to say about that?
I completely agree with what Melissa said. It's all about making it fun. That's what we try to do. And that's where our creative side comes into teaching, is we try to pull in what we know motivates our students. That comes down to knowing them. So when we know them, we can do what motivates them and make it fun and creative. And nobody knows them better though than their own families. So if their caregivers can tie in what motivates them, it makes it so much more engaging. The last thing that caregivers want to do is make this a fight or, another chore, another thing. But if you can make it exciting and fun, and then I would say, to speak to the balance part of your question, keep in mind that students' attention span is their age times 2. So a 5-year-old, their attention span is 10 minutes. A 7-year-old, 14 minutes. So to have your child sit down, and that's what we say is something that they're not particularly into. You might be thinking, I have a student or a child that can sit down and read Pokemon books for an hour, but that's something that they're probably really into, right? So what we do, a technique we use a lot at school, is to break up the movements, break up the academics. So do something sitting down, do something standing up, incorporate movement, go outside and do something. So if you keep that in mind, that'll help you as far as, you wouldn't want to have your child sit down and work for an hour straight on the computer or something like that. And I think that really helps balance that, what you said about a break and also academics.
Are there any, I know we don't have it as one of the questions still on the screen per se, but are there any websites or anything online that you guys can recommend that are fun and engaging that parents can share with their kids? Something that, obviously not sitting on the computer all day, right? But some things that they can do that can be useful over the summer to keep them engaged and keep them entertained?
I actually, in anticipation of a question like this, I actually sent a picture to Matt. So Matt, if you don't mind throwing up the free resources, the free websites picture, and then anybody that's watching, feel free to take a picture of the screen. But here are some free educational sites that teachers can suggest, parents can send their kiddos on. So feel free to take a screenshot of the screen right now. These are some great resources, and within here, some great virtual field trips and lots of fun stuff.
Awesome. I'm not familiar with all of these, and you guys probably more than me. Are a lot of these free for kids, or any of these have like any cost associated with them?
All the ones on this screen right now are free.
Awesome. Everybody loves free. That's good. So great things to have your kids work on over the summer. This is more primarily towards elementary level, or is this something that like middle school, or maybe not so much high school, but let's say middle school kids can focus on?
I would say some of the ones that really could leverage some learning and academic opportunities for more middle schoolers would be more like the National Geographics and some of the kind of nonfiction type sites, Time for Kids, things where they're really able to, like I said, go on those virtual field trips, dig into some nonfiction vocabulary and text. Those are probably more appropriate than, I would say, the ABC Mouse or maybe even the ABC app, which would be definitely more primary.
Awesome. All right, so let's move on to number 4. Let's see here. So what would summer learning look like? What do you guys have to say about that?
So summer, we're kind of looking at each other like,
I can tell you, if I asked my wife that question, she would tell me, let's learning how to fix things around the house while you get off your butt. But that's
your honey-do list.
And she's probably going to hit me when she watches. She's going to pinch me a little bit when she watches this.
So we really want summer learning to look like fun, right? We know that best practices as a teacher working with elementary students, I could have my students, let's say I'm having them practice sight words. I could have them do something potentially really boring, right? Like we're going to write the words 5 times each. We all remember doing that when we were in school. But the second you pull out highlighters or magnetic letters or sidewalk chalk and you go out to the bus ramp, anything like that that makes it the slightest bit more engaging or makes it feel like they're really manipulating the materials and it's more hands-on, your engagement is going to go through the roof. So I always tell parents, I call it the DT, the Dollar Tree, and everybody always laughs at me when I go. I say, I'm going to go hit up the DT. But you can go in the Dollar Tree and literally spend $5 and have the most fun, engaging materials for your child for all summer. So have them squirt shaving cream on the side of the bathtub and they're using their finger to write sight words in the bathtub, sidewalk chalk, magnetic letters. There's so many different things you can do when you add just a couple dollars of a few extra things.
Listen, even though I'm like 21 years old, I still want to get, why are you laughing? I'm just kidding.
We're agreeing.
I still want to get that paint that they came out with like a couple of years ago that you could write on, the chalkboard paint. I still want that, and I'm a grown adult. So stuff like that is too, obviously you got to pay for the paint, but things like that, I've seen pictures of people drawn on their walls, things like that. So that's another good way of fun thing for a kid to do in their bedroom, be able to write all over the wall. So
exactly. I was going to say the same word, fun, and then my second word for that was going to be exploration. Allowing them to explore their environments and explore their resources and their materials. Summer is such a great time to work on increasing their confidence as learners and also allowing them to start practicing taking initiative over their learning. Giving them a say in, what books do you want to read? What are you interested in? What do you want to explore outside? Let's go look for ladybugs. Let's see how many ladybugs we find. Let's talk about, ladybug metamorphosis and all that fun stuff. It will increase their excitement, and it will also allow them to, practice that. They'll get that extra engagement, but they'll also be able to practice, well, this is how I want to learn. And that's something they'll take back with them when they go to school. They'll have that, motivation to take initiative over their own learning. And that confidence and initiative are really important overall.
Yeah, and that real life experiences that we talk about in education. If you go into the school and the teacher starts talking about ladybugs and that summer were looking at them, reading about them, seeing them outside, then you make those connections and just motivate you to learn even more at that point.
Right.
So it's all about those experiences, and you don't have to travel the world to get them. You can see them right in your backyard.
Right, exactly.
And another thing you can do is we're talking about really trying to leverage those experiences to incorporate into some learning activities, and even having maybe if you're going different places. I know that with everything going on, we're not going as many places now, but whether you capture photographs or not of where you're going and what you're doing as a family, having an interactive journal is a great tool to use for students to also practice writing over the summer. So it could look as simple as a composition notebook or a notepad where you have students or your child write about something that they've done, a walk you went on, go to the beach, anything. And then you can make it interactive where then the caregiver, or if you're a teacher doing summer learning, you can respond to them and write back. You can have students tell you all about their summer adventures, and that's a great way for them to be able to put something really exciting onto paper. And then, like we said before, just making it any more engaging than just pencil and paper would make it really fun. And I sent Matt a couple pictures of this. Matt, if you could throw up the picture that's called Sight Words. This is just an image where you can see just a couple different ideas of things you can do. So you can see here lots of different materials, right? You see straws, a beach ball, Legos, magnetic letters and dry beans, a fun swatter, anything you can do. And I bet you could buy all of this stuff at the Dollar Tree as well. DT. And then Matt, oh, go ahead, Dr. A.
I said DT.
Yeah, just put it in the DT. Listen, with $5, and I promise you'll have the most fun summer, and your kids will be so engaged. And then Matt, if you could throw up to more sight words games. So this is another one. This is, I always tell parents, there is a great resource called Teachers Pay Teachers, and you do not have to be a teacher to be on it, and you can actually filter for free materials, but you can find free things like this that you can recreate or print out, use anything you have around the house. And look, I bet this would be so much more fun and engaging for any kid rather than just index cards, like flashcards, right? So thank you, Matt. So anything you can do to really just make it more exciting, the engagement's gonna go through the roof. They're gonna be happy.
Now, we all know that all kids don't think learning is awesome sauce. So I can't stop laughing. That brings us to number 5. Matt, can you throw number 5 on there? I'll see if Sarah's gonna laugh at me on that one. So what can a caregiver do if their child is reluctant to engage in summer learning? So we know that everybody is not always in the mood to learn, especially during summer, right? When you think of summer, me growing up, it's like, oh, I go outside and play, do things, whatever. But we all know that some kids are reluctant to do this. So what do you guys have to say about that? What are your comments on that?
I think it's really approaching it, we just talked about, allowing them to take initiative, following your child's lead. If you know that they're particularly interested in, if they love Legos, well, let's make letters out of Legos. We don't even have to tell them we're learning. Like, we can, form the letter E, and let them trace it with Legos or something like that. But really following their lead and really sort of tuning into what they're showing their interests are, that will open up a whole realm, of possibilities, because we as the adults can take that and sort of figure out ways to, infuse learning into all of that, to where they'll feel like they're playing and they're doing what they love to do, and really they're getting that academic piece out of it.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Sarah?
I totally agree. Melissa hit it right on the head with that. It's all about leveraging what we know that they're interested in and turn it into a learning experience. So if you have a child that is more into the arts, then maybe doing what we would call a reader's theater activity, where you have students take a script and you can make it a whole family event. Everybody takes a part. They practice reading their script every day for a week. So they're building things like fluency, they're building expression, things like that. And then at the end of the week, let them use things around the house, make costumes, build sets. It could go as far or little as you want it to, but really leveraging what they're interested in is going to be the key. And then remember that attention span clue that I gave you. A child's attention span is their age times 2. For adults, it's your age divided in half plus 5. So
age divided by half plus 5. Okay.
So Dr. A, so I was laughing earlier because you said 21 and I know it's really 20. So if you divide it in half, 10 plus 5, 15 minutes, right? But keep that in mind. If as an adult, as your caregiver, as a teacher, if you're starting to feel squirmy, the kids are definitely squirmy. So come back to it later.
Yeah, and definitely on a side note too, when we talk about the education side, is you definitely want to turn something like this into a punishment. That's something you definitely want to do. You don't want to, if your child's not behaving, you don't want to say, go in your room and read this and do that. We know that, and unfortunately, sometimes that does happen. But that's something you definitely want to veer against, definitely during the summertime, especially, right? And for you guys watching live, and especially those you're going to watch, if you're watching the recording on YouTube channel, throw some comments in the box too, whether something that you're doing with your children, or remember when you were a kid, what's something that maybe you did in the education realm over the summer. So we want to hear from that. Throw it in the comments, whether it's live or you're watching the recording version. Awesome answers. So let's move on to the next question. What we got next up? So yeah, we kind of touched on a couple of them. So any other resources that you guys can share off the top of your head? I don't know if we have any other images saved for everybody here.
I have a couple more images. So, it's really about those. Think back, if you're a caregiver, think back to your parent-teacher conferences from all year. Think about what your child's teacher was telling you they need to work on over the summer. And then even ask your child too, what are some things that were in your classroom that we should maybe have in your work area at home? So Matt, if you wouldn't mind throwing up classroom word wall. If this is something that is new to you, this is a word wall which you would find in any primary classroom in any elementary school, but really it's just those sight words that your child works on all year, and they're categorized up on a common wall in a common area in your child's classroom. I bet if you're a caregiver tuning in, if you ask your child if they have a word wall in their classroom, their eyes will light up. They'll know exactly what you're talking about. But you can make this in a smaller version in your home. So this would be a great place for you to have a sight word list and all those words that your child has already learned when they're doing their writing, maybe in that interactive journal. Suggest to them, hey, is this a sight word? Let's check your list. We want to make sure we spell it correctly. And then Matt, if you'll throw up independent word wall, if you don't mind, please. This is another larger version of this, but again, this one has those sight words that every child in the grade would learn at this school, but then you can see some other words on here too that aren't maybe necessarily sight words, but that some of the children in this class love to write about. Thank you, Matt. So, also leverage what your child likes to write about. I always tell this story because it always makes me laugh. I had a little girl in my class a long time ago, and she would only write about cats. That's it, only cats. And so she had an independent word wall, and I bet you can think of a lot of the words on her word wall: cat, feline, cat toy, treat, all kinds of things. And then the joke is that one time I told her, you have to write about outer space. You can't write about cats today. We're learning about outer space, and I really want to see what you remember, what we learned this week. And of course, she wrote about a cat in outer space. So you got to give it to kids. They're always going to amaze us, right? But using those resources and putting them somewhere in your home where students can really have some things that they're used to learning with, those are going to be great tools to include.
Awesome. I agree with that, and having those resources available, and even allowing your children or your students to have access to all of those resources, because that's going to be another way that they're sort of taking initiative over their own learning, giving them access to those materials and saying, what looks good to you, what's interesting, and, what can we create together? And, I know you posted the one list of resources earlier, and I wanted to add on to that. The virtual field trips are fantastic, especially, right now, travel is limited, and summer is, a time that many people choose to travel. And you can create so many different activities out of that. It can spark conversation for, reading interests and things like that. And you can write about that. And so I think just having that collection available and having it be something that you explore, as well as allowing your student to explore.
Awesome. We got a great question from one of our viewers. What EdTech tools do you recommend to reduce summer learning loss in grades PK through 3? So the little ones there. Anything specific you guys can share?
With pre-K through 3, that's that time where we really want students engaged in learning with as much hands-on as possible. So like Melissa was saying earlier, I know that he's specifically asking about EdTech, but anything that you do, then incorporate technology. So if you are having students or your child, you're baking something together and you're digging into mixing and measuring, but then you're also diving into oral language development, vocabulary, such as, whisking and all those things, then you can then tie that into EdTech by finding some programs online where you can have your student write and type up and add pictures and photographs and create a storyboard of what you made together. And then also, and it just says Facebook user, I'm sorry, I can't see your name, but whoever asked this question, also remember those websites we put up earlier. So Matt, I don't know if you mind putting that up one more time. Thank you, Matt. But feel free to take a picture of this. Just looking at it, Learning A to Z, perfect for those younger kids. BrainPOP, lots of great videos explaining concepts. Storyline Online, read stories aloud, so listening comprehension. ABC Mouse, they pick their own level and they can work through some different phonics activities. Time for Kids, nonfiction. But feel free to take a picture of the screen, but everything on this screen is a free website.
Awesome. So before we get to the next question, we're going to take a little word from one of our sponsors of Deets with Dr. A. Let's hear from our sponsor.
A quick little word from our sponsors over at Pun World. The other day, I got attacked by 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. The odds were against me. Back to you, Dr. A.
All right. So we love having fun here at the Learning Liaison. So hopefully you weren't shaking your head and nodding like this, but little laughter there. So let's move on to our next question. All right. So what do we got coming up here? So what is the most important thing for caregivers to keep in mind this summer?
I'm going to say show yourselves and your students grace this summer. That's going to be our biggest, at least, one of the top of my list is grace this summer. Everyone has been through quite a lot this year. So I think that's going to be first and foremost the most important thing. They're going to need, our students especially are going to need that level of understanding from us. And I think if we can allow them to feel safe and supported, that's a really strong foundation upon which to continue to build their academic learning, but that, it's a foundation for them. So that's going to have to come first. And then, again, just take their lead and have fun with it, and use this time to, to continue to allow them to sort of build their own ideas about what their interests are and how you can learn that use that as far as their learning. I think it's a good place to start.
You feel that transcends all grade levels, K through 12?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
All right. So what do you think, Sarah?
I love what Melissa said, and that's really, where my heart is too, is giving students grace to kind of meet them where they are, and then leverage what they already know and what they're interested in to really create some fun experiences for them over the summer. But then as an advocate for what's called social emotional learning and trauma-informed educating, I would also say bring in those stories and those books when you're reading with your child. Bring in those stories that are going to really leverage some great conversations that have some nice conversation starters for what they're going through right now. So the most important thing we want students to know this summer is that every emotion that they're feeling is normal and okay. But we want them to be able to express those and process those in healthy ways. There are so many great books out there on about anxiety and worrying and trying new things and being brave and all kinds of topics that really allow for some great conversations so that students aren't holding that in all summer. We want them to be able to have healthy ways to express that. So keep in mind that that's a great tool to bring in those stories that are really going to help you have some important conversations with what's going on in our world.
I think for our older students too, Dr. A, just to touch on what you were saying with that as well. Obviously, those conversations will look different based off of the age of our students, but I think especially for our older students, it's going to be really important for them to hear that they're not alone in how they're feeling. I think being open to having those conversations and saying, I'm feeling that way too. Because sometimes, I remember when I was that age feeling like, am I the only one thinking like this? Am I the only one that feels like this? And it's so comforting to hear from someone else that they're feeling the same way. So I think for our older students, that would be a really good point of conversation to open up there for older kiddos.
It's all about even what we do here at the Learning Liaisons, working with thousands of teachers helping their exams. A lot of teachers, whether I meet them face-to-face at schools or universities or even online on the phone, a lot of people just think they're alone. Like they failed their exam. They think there's something wrong with them. Maybe they should change careers. It's all aspects of life. So it's a great point that you ladies are making, that you got to understand that whether it's a 5-year-old, 10-year-old, 13, 18-year-old, everybody's got feelings. Sometimes it's a little harder to get to them. Sometimes it's very easy to get to them. Yeah. It's all about having those conversations. And sometimes even the side note to that is if you're a parent or a guardian, a caregiver, maybe you're not sure how to initiate those conversations. That could be something else. What do you guys think about that? If you have a 5-year-old daughter or son or a middle school kid or high school kid, and you feel like, obviously they have some feelings and they're upset about what's going on and school and everything, how do you even initiate that conversation? Because I'm sure that every household is different. And sometimes people might not know, parents might not know what do I do to engage in that conversation, right? So do you guys have any thoughts about that? How to go about initiating conversations if that's something that you feel like it's really not that easy to do?
If Sarah, if you don't mind if I hop in quick, I think with our younger learners, you know, what Sarah was saying earlier about finding books and things that touch on some of those hard conversations, I think for our younger learners, that makes it relatable. So when they hear that story and they recognize, oh, that's how I'm feeling too, that will sort of open the conversation for our younger learners. And then, you know, a lot of our older learners, a lot of them have access to social media. They're on the internet. They see what's going on. So I think just keeping a very open and honest line of communication with them and asking them, how are you feeling about what you're seeing and what you're hearing? And, you know, what's your processing like on this issue? And really just listening, taking a moment to just listen, allow them to feel heard. I think those are sort of the two best ways to approach those two age groups. I mean, obviously there's literature that's going to be available for our older students, and some of them might prefer to engage in conversation through that. Oh, I read about this and this is how I'm feeling about it. But I think those are two good strategies to address those two age groups.
Awesome. What do you think, Sarah?
I love that, Melissa. And, you know, I think too, to kind of tackle the other side of that, what if the caregivers are the ones that are reluctant, right? What if, like Dr. A, you were saying, they don't, you know, I don't know, maybe they're saying, I don't know what books are out there now. I don't know what books, you know, really lend themselves to this conversation. So I would say, you know, first of all, it's impactful to be honest that even as adult, we don't have all the answers. Mm-hmm. But you can even bring in books that maybe you remember from your childhood and how fun it is to be able to introduce your children to some of their favorites. So let's see if we can try something. If you are in our Facebook groups or if you are tuning in, comment. I would love to hear it. What are some of your favorite books from when you were a child? I know that there's all those favorites from when we were growing up. So can anybody tell us what were some of your favorites growing up? And then, you know, it's really about taking those books and that we know that we loved, and that could kind of help because maybe it's a book that you're more familiar with. But if anybody can comment with any of their childhood favorites, I'd love to see what they are.
What was your favorite, Sarah?
I was a Ramona Quimby fan. I was a Babysitter's Club reader through and through. I loved Nancy Drew, and that was one that was my mom's favorite growing up. So that was really fun to connect to her through Nancy Drew. Anything that had to do with growing up, right? So those, as far as, you know, learning, like Babysitter's Club, learning how to babysit, or something about going to middle school, something that made you feel heard about what you're already thinking about getting older and growing up. But I would say all-time favorite Babysitter's Club.
Melissa, your turn.
Those are good. So I love the Lorax. That's one of my favorites. I also read the Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew. I read the Babysitter's Club. Goosebumps was a big one of my favorites. Yeah, I loved anything that had a little bit of mystery and adventure and excitement to it. And then I also loved anything with a, you know, warm, fuzzy ending. That was, you know, the Lorax was a good one for me. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What about you, Matt?
Oh,
what was your favorite? Yeah, I gotcha. By the way, my bad at the beginning, usually I introduce Matt. Matt's our executive producer. He's the one doing the stuff in the background, changing the questions, helping us out. So he's going to hate me right now after this one. But what was your
Actually, I've been thinking about this. I don't know if anyone remembers these books, but there was this one series. It was like the Sideways Stories from Wayside High or something like that. And there was like 2 books. or maybe actually 3 books. I have a little set, and if you haven't read it, go out and find it. Just Sarah, you're shaking your head. You've heard of it? Okay.
I know exactly what you're talking about. You know, and those are still, I have them in my classroom library. Actually, they're well loved, and you know, anything that is silly, right? Were I think a lot of our favorites. Dr. A, do you remember any of yours?
Honestly, I'll be honest with you. When I was a little kid, and this is something that's on some people actually read my story on my website. I don't really advertise it. But when I was growing up, I had very severe reading disabilities when I was a kid. And I was put in a room with a couple other students every day. I'll never forget kindergarten. And I grew up in New York. So elementary school went to sixth grade. So reading, honestly, I was not an avid reader. It wasn't until I went to my master's degree and doctoral degree before I started reading. But the only real book I read when I was a kid a lot of times was The Little Engine That Could. But that's like real young. But honestly, if someone asked me, literally sat there and said, name some books you read as a kid, I know it's embarrassing, but reading wasn't something that I was a fan of until I was much older. Yeah. So I really applaud.
That's an impactful story too, though, because there's so many students that struggle with reading, and look at you have your doctorate, you created it, are CEO of your own company. That's a huge success story. So that needs to be told just as much, probably even if not more, than me saying, oh, I was intrinsically motivated to read by myself every single day, right? That story needs to be told too.
We all have our passions. So reading when I was younger wasn't, but writing, I love writing. I still love writing even to today. So we all have things that we excel at and we enjoy at. So so I think we hit all of the questions here. Any of you guys, I know as we're talking and thinking about stuff, I'm sure you reflected and coming up with some ideas or things that come to mind through our conversations. Any kind of final words, last comments when we talk about things to do with your elementary school kids during the summer, anything that we didn't touch on that you guys want to share?
I think just, to really hit it again, though, make it fun. Make it fun. Make it, you don't want it to be, like Dr. A said, a punishment, a fight. Make it fun. Keep incorporating new materials. Your kids best, so use that to make it engaging for them. And then, as far as additional resources, this has been great. I don't want this to be goodbye. So if anybody's watching and wants to stay connected with me, I would love to stay connected. My Twitter handle is on the screen. Also, it's not up there, but I recommend a lot of books on my Instagram. So on Instagram, my handle is at meet_miss_hall. So I will type it over in the chat in a second. But Instagram, Meet Miss Hall. Twitter, Sarah Hall KG. Let's stay connected. I love recommending books, and also tag me in the fun things you're doing. I'd love to see it.
Awesome. About you, Melissa, anything else you want to share when it comes to the topic?
Yeah, I think, just what we touched on earlier, I think summer is the perfect time to really work on students' excitement as learners. It's the perfect time to allow them to explore and figure out what type of approach they prefer when it comes to learning, because when they come back to the classroom, we want them to be excited about learning, and we want them to have all of these new skills and this confidence when they come back to the classroom about how they're going to go into the year and use all those skills. I feel like such a huge portion of being a learner is that excitement factor and that confidence, because if someone hands you a piece of material, you might know it, but if you're not confident in it, that's going to significantly impact how your performance.
So that goes the same for us as teachers too.
Exactly. For everyone.
Teachers watching this live, or the people who are going to watch us on our YouTube channel afterwards, educators as well. This is not for our kids. We know as educators, research changed, things change, especially now with schools closing down and turning to distance learning. We've got a lot of teachers, including these two ladies on the screen, that are doing exceptional things with their students. And you watch the stories across the country, people doing things online. And there's also the other side where some people are really not that confident. And then on the real other side, far on the left side, is the people that just didn't know what they were doing, kind of thrown into it. So learning over the summer is a great thing. And we're going to have some topics coming up on shows over the summer too, how to get yourself prepared if you're a teacher for the new era of school. We know it's not going to look exactly the same way when we start school in August or September, depending on what state you're watching in. So as an educator, take it upon yourself to research, find things that are working for teachers across the country, learn about them, learn the technology, right? Even if it's as simple as using like Google Sheets or Google Docs, or getting accustomed to Zoom, because I'm sure that things are going to change. Not all school districts are going to go back 100%. There's going to be mixed mode. So get yourself prepared over the summer. So it's not just the kids, it's yourself too, as an educator and as a parent. So great stuff there. So What we're going to do here is we're going to wrap it up here right now. I do want to thank Sarah and Melissa for joining us here on episode 2 of the Deets with Dr. A. We talked about teacher certification last week. And next week, for you guys who joined after we start, Matt, if you want to throw up our guest for next week coming up. This is next Monday. Remember, we're doing this every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You guys are in for a real treat. If you are a parent, a teacher, and this guy travels the country. He speaks to tens of thousands of students since he's been doing this. He's got his own nonprofit anti-bullying organization located out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He's a founder. It's Teach Anti-Bullying, and he is an amazing individual with amazing life story and experiences. And his job is to help you guys, not just on cyberbullying, but bullying in general, because we know, especially now since we're introducing the technology side, they might open the doors up for other things. And with the new applications and things that our kids are using on their smartphones, middle school, high school, maybe even elementary school students, things that you need to be aware of and cognizant of moving forward. So as a parent or as a teacher, you're aware of these situations and how to handle them. So we're honored to have him here next week, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So once again, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. I always love learning from Melissa as well. So it was an honor to get to share with her. And then thanks for having us, Dr. A. And thanks to Matt.
Thank you for coming. All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to wrap this up. If you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, go ahead and throw them in the chat box. If you're watching live, thank you for joining us here on our episode number 2 of Deets with Dr. A. If you're watching this recording on our YouTube channel, thank you. Please make sure below this video you like, comment, and subscribe to Learning Liaisons. Yes, our main focus, our business is to help teachers pass their certification exams and school leaders in Florida across the country. But now we're rolling out this show every Monday night where it's strictly content to help you, whether you're a parent, a teacher, a school leader, whomever, we're here to help you. So with that being said, we're going to wrap this up, call it the end of episode 2. Dr. A here, Deets with Dr. A. You guys have a great rest of your Monday, an even better week, and an amazing weekend. You guys have a great night, and we'll talk to you next Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, so let's throw on that exit.